what is the psychology around stalking? Why do people, and I know this is sort of tarring everyone with the same brush, but why do people stalk?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There are 5 typologies have been identified of stalkers based on their motivations. So just really briefly, they're a rejected stalker. So that's someone who's been rejected by someone, usually a romantic partner, but it could be, a workplace or something like that. So they're stalking initially, maybe to get that person back, and then that might turn into anger and revenge. There's a resentful stalker who's stalking purely based on rage and anger. So they just want to destroy a person's life because they feel affronted in some way, that person has made them angry. There's an intimacy seeker, who is someone who's usually the ones we might see on TV. So they've identified someone, it could be a celebrity or someone who they don't really know, who they've deemed that they're in love with, and they proceed to stalk and harass that person. An incompetent suitor is someone who might stalk someone for 2 or 3 weeks, where they're just desperately trying to either get a date or get sex or, something short term. And then there's a predatory stalker, which is what we usually see on TV, where it's a stranger and they're stalking the person in person, and they're not known to that person, and they're not letting themselves be seen or things like that. And that can often lead to violence or rape or things like that. But they're the least common, interestingly.
Is there a level of this one's the most dangerous?
So in terms of violent or fatal outcomes, predatory stalkers are up there, even though they're less common, because they're usually, they're stalking someone for the purpose of an attack, ultimately. And rejected stalkers have a higher risk of violence or fatalities, and that sort of links in with domestic violence there, because they're often an ex-partner. Whereas a resentful stalker, which is what the experts deemed the person who stalked me to be in, has a lower risk of violence but a higher risk of perseverance and longevity. So it's the determination level and the persistence could be longer.
Did it ever come out as to why?
No. The court scenario was honestly not just my case, all the cases that came before me. I just found the whole thing to be just mind-blowing, how disorganized it was and how little was actually said about cases that came out. So not much was said at all.
How was Adam through the process? What were the conversations that you were having with Adam?
Yeah, it was really difficult because, like you said, it's hard for a man or anyone really to sit by and watch someone they love be, so upset. And sometimes, I was really, really upset, and that would sometimes either manifest itself in really high, emotion and sadness, and other times it was fear, and other times it was like raging anger. And, he's the one there, and all of it's, it's there directed at him. So, he wanted to, I guess he had that urge to say or do something. And in hindsight, I don't know, sometimes I look back and I get frustrated that I sat and let this happen for so long and did nothing.
But then that's victim blaming, isn't it? That's blaming yourself.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. But you kind of think like, I don't know. It's really, I've been getting I always feel myself a bit lost for words because I get very frustrated with myself, and I sort of promise myself, like, I'm never going to, I will never just sit and wait for years while someone does this to me. But I honestly thought that I didn't think that I wanted to give her that satisfaction of him contacting her. That's how I thought in the initial stages, because I thought that's probably what she was after. But after all this time, if it happened again, I don't know, I think I'd probably have a bit more trouble stopping people from intervening this time. If it happened again, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, like it's just hard considering you're trying to raise kids and it's a complex situation to navigate life in itself, let alone have this person interjecting. The Netflix the docu-series or the movie that came out about that stalker lady, I haven't watched it, but I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah.
I did watch the Piers Morgan interview with her, or the lady that alleges that it is her. Did that give you a sense of relief or vindication, or allow people to sort of, you can go, look, this is a situation. This guy waited 6 months before he went to the police. you know?
Yeah.
Like,
that
did
show,
it sort of...
It was brilliant. So, like, I've watched a lot of, obviously, movies and shows about stalking, and a lot of them do reflect some realities, but they all follow that same kind of pattern. You know, it starts and then escalates, and then, you know, there's some crazy stuff happens at the end. But that show reflected so many realities. And it's like, as soon as I saw that first scene where he's come in and he's kind of coyly saying, oh, you know, this has happened and it's happened 6 months ago, and the policeman's looking at him like, you know, why'd you wait that long? And, you know, he shows an example of one of the messages, and it was just something inane, like, I ate an egg today, and the officers saying, what's wrong with that? There's not a problem with that. And I think that I related to that so much, because that's how you feel, you know, because it does, when someone's doing that to you, it can range from comments or content that would seem almost funny to other people, probably, like in isolation. So it's really hard to, especially when you have waited that long, to explain why it's bothering you and why you've waited so long. And I think what that show also did really well is show the range of emotions that he felt, including at the beginning, not thinking it was that much of a big deal, like, because you don't know when something starts how it's going to end up. There's just no way of predicting that kind of behavior.